I'm so excited to chat with Amanda Ewan on the Awaken Feminine podcast. Amanda is an experienced lifestyle coach and meditation teacher, helping high achieving women shift from feeling meh to magnificent so they can bounce out of bed in the morning using a blend of hot science and cool spirituality. And I know she has so much love and wisdom to share with us. I just love the words that you use to describe what you do. It's just, I love it. It's so cool. She's joining me from Perth, fellow Perthy, which I love. So we are podcasting at a decent hour of the day. And no offense to my overseas guests, but it's so much easier. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've got goosebumps already, and I'm super excited to have this conversation with you. And those words light me up every time, which I love because there's nothing worse than getting bored with your introduction. So,
Yeah, no, I love when I saw it, I'm like, I'm just gonna go straight word for word with what she wrote to me. So it's such a great way to do your intro. So, Amanda, before we dive into our conversation, I always love to ask my guests this question, and that is, what is your definition of an awakened feminine?
such a cool question. And when I think of it, I think of the person that I was before I considered myself to be an awakened feminine, and then who I am now. And my whole body's covered in goosebumps. I've someone who is connected with themselves and living a life by design, as opposed to a life that what I would call a secondhand life that they thought they needed to do, whether it's what they had been role modeled to them or what they had thought. And I'm saying they as in that person I was before I became awakened, just by, what your primary caregiver showed you was a successful role model, and then living that life, that crazy busy life where you're just not even thinking about what you're doing and it just kind of evolves, and then you're either burnt out or just so dissatisfied and seeking all the time that extra thing. When I have this, I'm going to feel better. And so the awakened is when you have an awareness that you have control over your thoughts, you have control over what you do with them, not necessarily how you feel, but what you do with that feeling, and that you can do and be anything that you want to be.
Yeah, I've got full body goosebumps going on over here as well. That's such a beautiful definition. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, which really dovetails nicely into what I want to ask you next. You were saying that the awakened feminine, is you now, and then there was this previous version of you. So I'd love you to unpack a bit more about, who you are, give us a bit more about who you are, and really what has led you to doing what you do now.
So many things. And who am I now? I'm a woman living a life by design, identifying as gay after coming out at 50, and divorced, and it's yeah, and not even knowing prior to that. It's not like I spent my whole life hiding. I didn't even know, and then sort of that evolved. So I have had a big awakening in the last 3 or 4 years after separation and divorce, and leaving a relationship that I now realize was really unhealthy for a really long time. So the biggest epiphany was, when I look back, was losing my mum. So she died about 9 years ago, 9.5 years ago now, dropped dead of a stroke at 69. And when I talk about the role model that I had as my primary caregiver, mum was amazing, lived an amazing life, had 400 people at her funeral, but she did everything for everybody else. And yeah, she just didn't stop for herself. And that, when I look back, I mean, that may have been the life that she lived by design and what she wanted, but then I'm sure she didn't plan to drop dead at 69 of a stroke. And you know that's really young. She was still working, she wasn't on her medication, there was no outward signs of illness, and yeah, she had lots to live for. So I'm sure that that was not her intention. And I realized that I was living this crazy busy life that I thought I needed to do to be successful and happy. And without even thinking about it. So being on 5 boards and committees and being a mountain bike coach as well as mountain bike racing while running 2 businesses and having young children at primary school and being a wife and a friend and a, daughter and sibling and all of the things. And I was I was starting to get exhausted. And I just remember going to a meeting once as a chairman of a board, and it was all voluntary work that I was doing outside my 2 businesses. And I thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I got home and almost fell asleep at the table, just like my mum did, and thought, something has to change. And I had a mentor coach myself, and he just said, what is bringing you joy and what is not? And we wrote a list, and that of all the negotiable things. And there was a massive disparity, and there was lots of things on there that were only like a 2 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10. So I was thinking I should be doing them. How will I ever leave? And that was the epiphany moment. And I went, right. And he suggested taking a year off volunteering, which made me feel like my throat had been cut. Like, how am I going to do that? What are people going to think of me? Like, who will I be? And I was attaching my identity to all of these external things. So, I could talk for ages about that, but that was basically the awakening, taking that year off volunteering. So I knew it wasn't forever, it was just now. And then everything started to align. Like, it was amazing. And then I just started to see how the universe does provide things for you when you say yes to yourself, and then getting connected with what I truly wanted and what did bring me joy rather than what I thought I should be doing.
Oh, wow. Man, just listening to you like and what you were doing before is just insanity. Like running 2 businesses, being on how many boards?
I was on about 5. Yeah. Yeah. Like,
What?
the school council, the PNC, like, and then small business centre chairman, and I was on the Chamber of Commerce, and I lived
Yeah.
in a remote town and of 20,000 people. And yeah, I just said yes to everything because I thought that's what I needed to do to have fun in life.
And what was the drive? Like, what was the drive? Like, you think it's what you had to do to have fun in your life, but was there another driving force that made you feel like you had to just do all these things in order to be fun and happy?
Yeah, I never thought about, did I really want this? I thought, oh, if I do this, then I can say I'm on the chairman of a board and it's all going to sound really good and look good. I don't need a CV because I work for myself, but I just thought that maybe being on a board, women in boards is really big. And maybe that's without really thinking, is that what I want? And then it was such an honor to be invited to be the chairman. And I thought, well, that's how I'm going to up level my life, by doing these things, because that's what you should be doing. But I wasn't really connected enough to think, is this what I want to do? Do I enjoy being on this board? Is it something that aligns with everything else that I'm doing? So it was kind of that, oh, I should just say yes to this. And at the time it felt good, but I wasn't really connecting. I didn't really have, I'm very intuitive, but I wasn't really listening to my intuition. It was more the head getting
Yeah.
stuck in my head.
Yeah. This question popped in, which is a really strange question for me to ask you. But like looking back now, do you feel like you were running away from something, being like just getting yourself so busy so that you don't have to deal with something? I don't know. This is just a question
For
that popped in.
sure.
I'm like, okay, I'll ask
For
her.
sure. Absolutely. And I wasn't comfortable with being on my own, and I wasn't ever used to being idle or not doing very much. And I remember my first coach, this was probably about 8 years maybe before I went to this remote town and lived in Karratha in northwestern Australia. And I remember saying, I really want to meditate. And she said, what about just sitting for 30 seconds and doing nothing first? And I thought, I'm a high achiever. Of course I can meditate for 10 minutes and that'll be fine. And all these apps and stuff weren't even out then. So there was no
Yeah.
real access to them. It was CDs, I think, to start with.
Yeah.
And so I just started with sitting for 30 seconds. But yeah, it was this crazy busyness, but I didn't know any different. So there was no awakening. There was no realization that that busyness was stopping me from being connected with myself. And it was just what I thought you needed to do. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's not till
Yeah.
now when I open that space up and that stillness that gets you connected, helps with the awakening and how essential it is.
Yeah. Looking back, like, knowing what you know now and just looking back, like, why do you think we are so scared of connecting with ourselves? Like, why do we run away and keep ourselves so busy so that we can't hear all the things that we want to tell ourselves?
I think it's a really cool question. Haven't been asked that question before. I think it's really the disconnection we have because we aren't brought up being connected with our emotion or being allowed to express our emotion. Well, certainly I wasn't. Like, don't cry, come on, you just get on with it.
Yeah.
And so it's scary. Like, what's that feeling? Let's just keep busy and do something. And then I got into mountain bike racing as well. And then it's like, I can train for 13 hours a week and win races and be on podiums for some external gratification. And then I'm still like just keeping busy until my body decided that was not going to work anymore.
Yes, I bet. Was there, did you end up experiencing burnout from all that? Because, you were doing so much and um, is this, or was there something else that happened for you to go, I want to help women like just feel good?
I think I was super blessed that my body spoke to me and I was aware enough. I was becoming more awakened over time. I don't think there's ever a day where you wake up and go, oh, I suddenly get it now.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years down the track when you've been in the process of it, you're like, yes, but it's always a process. It'll be a lifetime process. I think I got adrenal fatigue or diagnosed with adrenal fatigue through a naturopath. And I knew that my body wasn't coping with all of the expectations I was putting on it. I don't consider it to be complete burnout. I think I was lucky enough to have had an awareness before I got to that point, and then I just stopped. If I had have kept going and not listened and not had that appointment, then I probably would have, it could have led to chronic fatigue and all of the, worse things that can happen.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah, I think
that's good to hear that you were able to be aware of that because, the amount of times I hear people talk about burnout and you just suddenly they're out. When you're out and you're just no good to anyone, including yourself. When we try to be superwomen and do all the things. I wanted to ask you this question also popped up around your mumming, your mumming during that time. Being so busy. I mean, I've got two young kids, as you know, 7 and 3, and your kids were in primary school at that time. How did you juggle everything? How did it work? What did it look like at that time for you?
it's interesting because I like to think that I was present for them, but possibly not so much. Certainly, as they got older and I discovered mindfulness and meditation and took this coaching path, helping other women not to live the life that I was living. And so I think my ex-husband worked from home and he was very available to be able to do lots of being at home at night if I had to go to meetings and school runs and things like that. So that was helpful. And there was lots of support around because so many people in a remote town don't have family support. So you kind of help each other out. But I wasn't very good at asking for help. Like I could just do it all myself and it would be fine. I didn't even think that it would be okay. I think at some point we had a cleaner, but I never thought about the possibility of outsourcing. And now I look back, I have a few much younger friends and they got au pairs or shared nannies and had that helped. Didn't even cross my mind that that was a possibility because of my money mindset as well. Like, you can't do that. That's a waste of money. And, it didn't even enter my head. So that's really interesting as well. Now I know so much about outsourcing and focusing on your zone of genius. I'd love to go back and do it all again. Not really. I'm quite glad.
No, I as much as sometimes you go, oh, if I knew I would do things differently, but we wouldn't be who we are today if we did things differently, I guess. So there's that blessing and gratitude for the journey that, we go on as well. But yeah, I just was interested to know how it all worked whilst you were doing all these things because I'm just from my experience with what I'm doing right now, like I do sometimes struggle with, being present and doing all the things that I'm doing. So really, but being aware of that and taking a step back now to just, be with my kids and be, and that's hard, switching off. I've not been good at switching off, and now I'm like, yes, I need to stop. I need to stop thinking. Like to stop. So it's I just just wanted to get our audience to have a feel of what it was like for you. So after you did that list and you're like, going to your coach, don't do this to me. I don't want to go volunteer and stop doing all this. And you had that go, oh wow, I can actually focus on things that I want to do. And it's like starting that awakening journey even more. Like, how did it feel for you to go, oh, I don't need to do all that stuff? And once you got back to what you were doing, how were things different with how you were planning your days and taking on projects and things like that?
It was more from a heart-centered place. So it was more about tuning in with, what do I actually want? And is this bringing me joy? Or am I doing it for some external reason or something that I think I should be doing? And it's still evolving. And also realizing that by saying no to the things that weren't aligned, it opened up opportunities, one, for other people, two, for me to do things that were really aligned. There was more space because you can't keep filling your plate. It's like going to a smorgasbord or a buffet and, you put all of the older you get to, you put more on your plate, the sicker you feel and like it's overflowing. And then you can't fit dessert in because you've, put all the stuff on your plate. So then I realized that the world didn't end. Like, nobody was sending me messages saying you're such a bad person. That's really what you think is going to happen. I don't know why, but they were the stories I was telling myself. And then being aware that they were just stories and that everybody is so busy living their own life that they don't even have time to think about it, the things that you might think they're thinking. And so I was always so worried and such a people pleaser, which came from other sources now, I realize, and that's still a work in progress. But just realizing that you really are in charge of your own destiny and you get to choose, and it's for your benefit, and you open up space. My mum always did things because, well, no one else will do it if I don't do it. And I actually started to understand that someone else will always step up. But if you're there saying yes to everything, they don't have to.
Yeah, totally. Totally. It's so interesting, isn't it? When you think, oh, I'll do it better than everyone else. And you are actually stripping people from opportunities to step up and be a leader and take charge and actually, you know, learn and grow because you are, just hoarding everything and then you get burnt out and you can't do anything.
Yes, absolutely. And then I started thinking, what do I want for my girls? And I want to be that. When I realized that perhaps the role model my mum wasn't really helpful for me, or having that awareness, there was never a discussion around you get to choose. You can do whatever you want. You can go to uni and do whatever you want. And I did podiatry for 32 years, but I never really loved it. It wasn't certainly something that called me. And I just would love a world where we really get to be aligned with what we do from when we become adults. And I mean, I know it's a journey as well, but
Yes. Yeah. That I want to ask you, when did you decide that you wanted to help other women to, feel good, bounce out of bed, and, then really getting into that hot science and cool spirituality aspect of it. Because, going from such a logical, perspective, when you were doing all the things to now, it's like you've just flipped completely your approach because, if you're heart led, you can't be up here that much. So I love to know that, that journey or that catalyst that sets you off on this path.
I think, yeah, great question. And I think it evolves over time. So I've always loved connecting with people. And as a podiatrist, you're getting to see people all the time. And the science wasn't enough. And I loved knowing about their brain. Like I've always been really intrigued, but not intrigued enough to study psychology or go down that path to become a counselor. I didn't want to be doing that. Working with people that have a therapist as well. I love coaching when someone is working with a therapist too. Wasn't the work that I wanted to do, but I got to the point with podiatry when you do it for so long of the science not being able to solve some of the problems. No matter what, no matter how much research I did, how many conferences I went to for particular conditions, nothing was changing it. And so I really started to think about what's going on with their life, with their mind, with their daily habits. Why wouldn't they change habits either? Like, how frustrating. You've got this pain that you're saying is an 8 out of 10, and then you come back to me week after week and you're not doing anything that I've suggested. You're still wearing the same shoes, you're still doing all these things. And so I then started thinking, oh, gosh, habits are really hard to change. And I got really interested in the habit side of it. And then the more I introduced that into my practice, the more aligned I felt, the more connected I felt, the better results they got. But I wasn't really enjoying it doing it through their foot pain.
It's like, I will look at your foot while I work on your brain.
That's right. And in the end, in the last, I've only just said no to podiatry because there's an attachment to that, to my identity as well. I only just said no this year. And I think that I just had this realization that there was more than being a podiatrist, and how would I do that? What would I do? And it was funny, when I was chairman of the board that I wasn't loving, I had the opportunity to go to Melbourne to a conference for the Small Business Corporation. And I just sought a life coach, Googled life coach Melbourne. And I remember just looking for someone that might align or just spoke to me. It was just the start of my real awakening, I think. And an amazing woman called Kate James, who's just an absolute delight and has written some fabulous books that are on my bookshelf behind me that I'm looking at. And I got a taxi out to her place. I don't even think Ubers existed then. And it was about half an hour in a taxi. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? This is like crazy. But just then going, I'm just being led, like I'm following this intuitive hit that I had that I'm much more aware of now, particularly being a manifestor in human design as well, which is a whole nother conversation. And we had 4 hours together, and there were tears and laughter. And she just said to me, what's the one thing that you can do to begin this journey? And I collaborated with one of my now best friends who was a business coach at the time. And we held some workshops one day, two one-day workshops that were just almost like a day retreat in Karratha. 43 degrees, the first one we did. It was crazy. And I just remember at the end of that first day, we created all the content and had, we did vision boarding, and I provided the food because I love beautiful whole food and just getting people more connected with themselves. And there was nothing on offer like that up there. I remember at the end of the day thinking, that feeling of pure joy that you haven't had since a kid. I was like, I'm getting goosebumps now. I want to bottle this feeling because this is it. This is it. And I still, I come back to that feeling every time I'm having a wobbly moment. I think, yeah, this is why I do it. And that was the beginning. And then it evolved to finally finding someone to help me with my message. The bounce out of bed came up, and then the podcast I called Bounce Out of Bed as well. And that sort of all started aligning. I wanted to do a podcast at least 4 years ago, but I didn't have that connection or really an understanding of how I could help people in the way that I do now. And now it's sort of it's probably just a year since that all evolved as well.
I love it. I just love listening and learning about your journey. It's so cool. And there's a few like things where I'm like, oh, I'm the same. I wanted to study like psychology really intrigued me um back in my uni days, but I was again like you, I wasn't invested enough to want to, so I did pharmacy. Um, I don't know. um, which brings me to ask you about labels because when I let go of my pharmacist label, oh my gosh, the grief that I had to go through was intense. It was gosh, I think I was pharmacist for 16 years. And I remember going into the hospital to have a farewell morning tea. And I mean, at that time, I had been on mat leave, but they still threw me a morning tea because I had been there for so long in the children's hospital. And I was doing a speech to say thank you. And I was crying so hard. I couldn't get my words out. I was like doing the, and I was going, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. But it was from my heart because I was, trying to express what I wanted to say to everyone. So that was my grieving, like full on, like ugly cry in front of like all my ex colleagues. Oh my gosh. How was it for you to, go finally say no to this career that you've had for so long?
The more I trusted myself, the more I knew that it was all aligning and it was going to be okay.
Mm.
And I think I'm picturing you with that feeling, and I'm busting to ask you the questions around how did you move through that? And but I'll answer the question. I think, and I'm picturing myself in the naturopath's office when she said to me, "You've got adrenal fatigue, your body's not coping, and you can't race your mountain bike anymore for probably the next 6 months. You can't get your heart rate up over 100." And at the time I was racing, I just invested $7,000 in a new bike so that I could be faster and get better. And I did the ugly crying. Luckily, there was only one. Not mine. I think ugly crying is perfect, and we need more of it in front of crowds. And I think that's the new world that we're entering. But at the time, would have been horrific. And I had that feeling, that ugly. Who am I without my mountain bike racing, and without that? I didn't realize that at the time. And how am I going to tell people like I'm the person that wins mountain bike races? And that was my escape too, because I was still married at the time. And I think that was my addiction or my therapy. It was just, I'm going to go and race, like train for 2 or 3 hours. And that was an escape too from that crazy busy life that I'd created. So this year when I was dwindling it was dwindling down thanks to COVID, because I couldn't in the beginning travel back up to Karratha, and I still had my business there, and then I didn't have lots of other things happen through the separation too, didn't have the capacity emotionally to be doing that travel. And I don't have kids at home now, but I had one still in year 12, and so there was all the things. And one of my regular clients, I was working for another podiatrist at the time, and I'd worked for myself for 20 years, but that was kind of just easy. I don't want to have another practice in Perth. And I was growing this coaching business. And one of my regulars said, "Are you going to be here in June?" And I thought, why is she asking me that? Like, oh. And I thought about being there in June. It was like 3 months away, and went, that makes me feel like really green, like not good. And so I said, probably not, because she had a connection with another podiatrist that through a family member or something. And she said, if you're not going to be here regularly, I don't want to keep coming if you're just going to disappear. I thought, I probably am just going to disappear. But and so I made myself a commitment and said, right, June, I need to give my notice, or it's going to be next June, or it's going to be 2025, and I'm still going to be doing this because it's easy and it's 5 minutes down the road. So I just said, and the scary thing is, I was thinking about it this morning in my ocean swim khaki. I'm like, my registration is due at the end of the month. Oh. And if I don't renew it, it's going to be pretty hard to become registered again as a podiatrist because we have lots of legislation around that.
Yeah.
And so that's 3 weeks away. So ask me the same question in another month when I have got. But there is, I just know I can trust now that I have been supported by the universe and that it's going to be okay. And I don't need to listen to the people that aren't awakened that say it's good to have something to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
I can go and fill shelves at Coles. Like, there's always going to be something.
Yeah.
And if it's not aligned and it was making me, like, I was dreading, I would cry on the way to work thinking, how am I going to do this? I just need to breathe and connect. And then they'd say, oh, I've got this foot problem. I think, oh, can you just go and find someone else to solve it for? That's not fair on the client, and it's not fair on me. So
yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes. And I will ask you at the end of November when you don't renew your registration, how you feel. I didn't renew it back in 2020 because that was when and it was just like, whoa, this is real. This is real now. Like there is no going back. Saying that you can go back, but like you say, there's like all the professional like education that we need to do and all the like hours that we need to do to get back in. Is not an easy process to get back in, but there is, because you've got the degree. But I just remember I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is it. And there was a part of me that really just went, maybe I should just renew it, just in case. But then the thought of like going back, like you were thinking, like it made me sick. Like I just couldn't. And that's when I went, okay, here we are.
And the universe has supported you. Like, and if you did renew, it'd be going, oh, well, you're not really serious then, are you, about not doing it? So exactly. Why are we going to open up new things for you when you're still holding on to this?
Yes, exactly. And that was when like everything just kind of opened up. And yeah, it's just so interesting. And I'm always miraculous and always in awe of just what happens when you say yes to yourself. And I just love that you said, like, if it doesn't work out, then there's other things that you can do and that we're always supported. Even like the fact that you chose that filling shelves in Coles is better than going back. That tells me a lot. But like, I don't know about you, but I think being in healthcare really narrows your view of the world and how you can make money or create abundance. Because once I was able to step out, and this is even before like, go on maternity leave for my second, this is when I started exploring, going, what is out there? You kind of go, wow, there are so many things I can do to create abundance, prosperity, like money, and abundance and the prosperity isn't just about money, it's about your time freedoms and all that kind of stuff. You go, where have I been? Right? Is that something that's happened for you as well? Once you kind of went, oh, all these things, just like
for
everywhere.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And meeting people like you, and wow, someone else has got a podcast in Perth, and they're doing this, and then choosing your course and the career path you've chosen now, and how many things have opened up for you with authoring, and it's just amazing. But when you're in that other world, you don't have, and the busyness I had, there was no time, and I wasn't calling in those people either.
Yeah.
I was calling in more of the people that were doing the crazy busy stuff. I call it crazy busy. Now I'm calm busy. Well, it's that awakening where you really are mindful about the things that you're doing and choosing to say yes to.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you brought that up, because it's not about going, oh, I'm awake now. Now I can lie on the couch and like things will just flow to me. You still have to take action, but more from a aligned place and from a place where you can go, okay, well, my body is not liking that. And my body is like, you are tired. You need to rest. Let's listen to that. Rather than go, I'm just going to push through because that's what we were taught to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And knowing that, I think it was Gabor Mate, when I heard him a couple of years ago say he's an
Mm,
amazing ex-physician. And when he said, I'm still learning at 77, that was a really, really life-changing moment for me, because then I went, oh, it's okay. Because I had the moments where if I haven't got all my act together, then how can I be the best coach mentor to my
mm,
clients if I am still having these moments? Because you think that, if you're teaching things, you should have worked them all out.
yeah.
And it's not about that. It's just being about enough steps ahead that you can share the message, and actually realizing that that is my purpose here on earth now. And it evolved through me needing. I think earlier I was thinking, when we were talking about life happens for you, not to you, thinking podiatry wasn't a mistake. That's what I needed to do
Yeah.
to get to where I am now, to have that understanding and that connection with so many people one-on-one, and to realize the one-on-one model is exhausting, and not in healthcare that's very much a thing. Is yeah, I can't wait for therapists to for psychologists to be able to step out and have packages for their clients where they have connection in between appointments, like a course or something,
Yeah.
where, and I'm sure there are people out there where it's not just that one-on-one. You've got an hour now and we'll see you again in a month. And then in between you've got all of these questions and you want to be able to voxer them, and you can't.
Yes.
So
I
I'm just
know.
creating that person I wish I had,
Yes. And
and that's the work I'm doing.
I think that's, when you step into this, heart-centered leadership and heart-centered work and service that, you do and I do and, so many others, it's like, okay, how can we create that person that I wish I had? Because, you know, I remember for me, it was like, I don't even know who to like who to ask, who can help me, and you're just like fumbling around, and yeah, so it's beautiful that you're doing that. This has popped up in my head, so I'm going to ask you, and if you're not comfortable talking about it, let me know. But I want to ask you about you realizing that you're a gay woman.
Yeah, no, I've got goosebumps again. I'm an open book, and I think the more we tell our story and the more vulnerable we are, the more amazing things happen, and the more we give permission to other people. When I've lent into that, and
Mm,
I'm much more, my sister says, you just wear your heart on your sleeve. I went, yeah, and it's helped so many people through doing that, and then it's
yeah.
helped me grow as well. So I separated after, I knew that things were not healthy and weren't work. Tried absolutely everything. That's another story. And so I'd been separated for about a year and was living on my own just down the road in Karratha. And that's another thing I thought, oh, what are people going to think? How am I going to do it in a small town? And anyway, it just got to the point where it had to happen. And then I thought, I need to be on my own for a while. There's no thought of dating or doing anything at all. Got to find out who I am, what I want more of, and how to get into more of the coaching and not so much podiatry. And I went to a Wim Hof workshop because I love Wim Hof, the
Yeah.
Iceman, and I wanted to know. I knew that I was going to move to Perth within a year from Karratha. Karratha is a really hot town
Yes.
in northwestern
Mm,
Australia. For those that are listening and don't know what I'm talking about, like it's 30 in winter and 40 degrees Celsius in summer, so
yeah.
it's
Well,
pretty hot.
it's 38 now because my husband works up there.
Ah,
It's not even like summer yet.
yeah, crazy. And I thought, I'd always said I hate the cold, and so I knew I needed to be able to cope with the cold better. And I thought, and a Wim Hof workshop came up, and I'm always curious. Like, I'm just going to jump on a plane and go and do
Yeah.
it. And then a friend that I had in that year was also going through separation and had always been gay. And she said, oh, I'll come. I've got some work over in Geelong. I'll just come with you if you want. We didn't really know each other that well. We'd had a bit of connection through the sport that we did and stuff. And so she came, and on the plane on the way home, I was sitting next to her, and I thought, the feeling that I have with your arm touching mine is just not like,
Yeah.
a really good friend feeling. And then, yeah, and I just kind of sat with that in my subconscious, half in my conscious, just kind of dismissing it, going, oh my gosh, this is really, really weird. And then came to Perth for Christmas, and I was house sitting for a friend just down the road from this friend, and we spent a lot of time together. And then I thought, oh my gosh, this is like, I have to tell her how I'm feeling before I drive back to Karratha. And I did. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like I had to also think, I think it was New Year's morning, and I had told her, and I had no idea what she was thinking, because you can't assume that every woman that's gay is going to like every other woman. I had no idea about that world. Well, it was another world to me. I mean, I had a few friends, but not really any understanding, having a lifetime of heterosexuality, and my ex-husband I was with from 20. So yeah, and we started a relationship, moved in together after 4 months, which was quite wild when I moved back down to Perth. And we were together for a couple of years. We just had we had a lot of traumatic things happen, a lot of external things. She had a 4-year-old, I had a 16-year-old. It didn't, and an 18-year-old. It didn't sort of work out for those reasons. Mm. But through that, and then after that, then I'm just accepted that, oh, this is, I've fallen in love with somebody, but I don't know if I'm gay because it's only one woman. It might just be the person. And then when we broke up, I was on my own for a while, and then I went on a dating app and went, yeah, I only want to connect with women now, and just having that awareness, but that constant wonder, oh, is it men or women? And then feeling a bit like an imposter, saying you're gay or lesbian, because it hasn't been something that I've struggled with and had to pretend I was someone different. So, and I've just been so supported. I think the separation was really great to realize who your friends are and who they aren't. And then through that has helped me understand that you get to choose who you hang out with. You get to choose the people that you're around, and people that light you up and accept you for who you are, no matter what. And so I've been really blessed in my journey through that. And yeah. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, that did definitely answer the question. It's just so fascinating because, like a lot of times you hear about people that are homosexual, and it's been something that they just covered up all their lives.
Yes.
But you just kind of went, oh, I like women now. Like, instead of, yeah. How did you feel like to kind of go, oh, I don't like men anymore. I like women. Like, what was that feeling like? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just really curious.
It was like going up in a rocket and coming down on another planet. Like, honestly, I'd go to the beach and just be looking like, oh, there's women. Like, women existed in a completely different way. And and I'm always in awe and wonder anyway, because that's how I just, part of my nature, and I'm just always intrigued. And so it was really interesting, to suddenly look at women in a sexual way, which, had never crossed my path before. And it was just like, I'd constantly have to think, well, shit, have I got sunglasses on, because I might be staring and it was just like being a teenager again in a way. And especially after the breakup of the first gay relationship I had, and thinking, friends saying, oh, you're going to choose a man or a woman next time, like, and the heterosexual friends would be almost doubting. And when you're, and then I also, because I had a fairly realization I was in a toxic marriage, then people saying to me, oh, it's just because you don't trust men. And I started thinking, oh, maybe that is the case. But then the more connected I got with myself through the stillness and all the work that I've done and understanding that I have, it's like, no, it's not that at all. And and in another relationship now, and with someone who's been through similar journey as well,
Yeah.
being heterosexual and then having that awakening. And it's not uncommon with women, but of course I did all the reading and I talked to my psych about it a lot, like, is there something wrong with me? And am I an imposter as well in that world? And
Yeah.
I've been open about that with people that have been gay for a lifetime. And my previous partner was super supportive as well, and we could talk about that a lot. So that was
Yeah.
really, really good and helpful. And it's just opened up a whole new world, and it's incredible. But the mindset around, like, how should I dress? How should I, then I need to show up differently. And what will people think of me? And, oh, if I say I'm gay and they're really religious, will they be offended or think differently?
Mm.
I'm like, all of this stuff that,
Yeah.
so it's, yeah, quite
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I'm just so intrigued by all that because yeah, it is like, how do you navigate this brand new world? And, half your life, you're 50 and you're like, oh, it's like I'm just starting my life out again, right? With this whole new perspective and a whole new way of being. How did your daughters take to this change?
I was really scared to tell them. One, to tell them that you've found somebody that's not their dad,
Yeah,
and but I think they're just, my youngest one loves Harry Styles from
yeah,
originally One Direction, and
yeah,
he is treat people with kindness and accept anyone,
yeah,
and doesn't really identify as anything. So
yeah,
he was her role model, and she said, well, mum, Harry's taught me you just accept anyone, and like, it's fine. And I think my older daughter was just excited that they just wanted me to be happy at the
yeah,
end of the day, and that was the beautiful blessing. Same with my dad. I wonder what my mum would have thought. Probably that dad just said, I want you to be happy. And
yeah,
I've been really blessed with the acceptance from, I don't think there's been, and people just drifted. I was very glad that I'd separated, well before that. So friends
mm,
had, who I thought were friends had
yeah,
dropped off, if you like. And
yes,
then it wasn't because of that change in the sexual
yeah,
persuasion.
yeah. I just love that. That you have so much support, and we're always so loved, and half the time we make all the stories in our head to go, oh my God, what's going to happen? But once you say it, it's like, oh, was that all? I was expecting a kind of different response. So I'm just so happy that you're just so loved and supported, and also really proud of you for not letting other people's opinions get in your head when you were wondering, oh, maybe is it because I had a bad experience with a man, and all those things, all those doubts that filled your head, to really get connected with yourself, to just go, no, that's not the case. So that's beautiful, and shows how much work that you've done on yourself, and the growth and the healing and the awakening that you've gone through. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story, because I was just so fascinated and I just wanted to know. It's all about me, of course, because wanting to find out. So
But I love that you asked. I love that you asked. And I'm always amazed at people that don't. So thank you.
yeah, no, thank you for sharing. And I'm just looking at the time. I'm like, so I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions before we wrap up. The first one being, if you can time travel and go back to a younger version of Amanda, what's that one key piece of advice that you would love to tell her?
She gets to choose her destiny. She gets to choose what she does, how she spends her time. And if she's too busy and keeps filling her cup with everything because she thinks she should, she's never going to find out what lights her up. And she only has to do things that light her up. She gets to choose, and she gets to honor that inner calling and get out of her head and into her body, and whatever she can do to get more in touch with that connection and alignment, then go for it and
Yeah,
listen to your body all the way.
that's beautiful. So beautiful. And not just for young Amanda, but for everyone that's listening or watching this right now. What a beautiful, piece of advice and wisdom. Thank you so much. And the last question I have for you is what is currently setting your soul on fire?
Having my first group program that's just launched is setting my soul on fire because I've been doing one-on-one coaching until now. And I did my first 5-day challenge, and that was phenomenal. And just seeing the change in more women, getting connected, mostly women. And yeah, having the group program and just this collective together of women going, I didn't realize other people feel like this. I didn't realize that I felt so alone, and now I don't feel so alone.
Mm.
And just being able to share those epiphany moments and all of the things that have helped me that I've brought together to teach, that setting my soul on fire. And the thought of doing more public speaking and podcast, I have my own podcast and being on other, that just, it like I was so excited today to be having this conversation. And I did a big ocean swim because I've got a few races coming up that I'm not caring about the outcome of now. I've learned that. And I was just in the ocean. I'm so excited to be talking and sharing, to have more awakening.
Yeah.
And yeah, a better world.
Yeah, love that. And that's why it's so important to share our stories, because it just helps other people to know that they're not alone, just like you say. And we're here to support each other and, raise the collective consciousness and awakening so that we can have more of these, beautiful experiences for other people as well and support them in on their journey. So thank you so much for everything that you do and your beautiful presence. I just love this conversation. So much fun. And, so grateful that, we've connected and, yeah, and to build this friendship that we have. So yes, thank you so much, Amanda. So I want to ask you, if people want to know more about you, how they can work with you, where's the best place to find you?
The best place is my name everywhere, Amanda Ewin, EWIN, and my website's amandaewan.com. Insta's one of my favorite places to hang out, and that's Amanda Ewin, and open to being friended on Facebook as well. Facebook's an interesting place. And yeah, they're the best places. And to listen to my podcast as well, or, I'm always open to having guests on there as well at Bounce Out of Bed too.
Yay. Amazing. I will have all your details in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you once again for this amazing time together.
I've got goosebumps again. And thank you so much. It's been a delight.